Good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily evening news show. We are broadcasting live and then available on demand. We are available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire Television, and of course, YouTube and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Wednesday, October 5th, 2022, and we are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ plus news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio models of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ plus community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ plus media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ plus community and broader community.
Well, let's begin by welcoming anchor FayWhat. She's a radio and television personality. I never get tired of doing that, by the way. She is a radio and television personality and has a popular blog and YouTube channel aiming to unite the L and the G together. She's a hostess and MC for many South Florida events, an animal activist, and owner of Faye's Fur Family. Also, make sure you catch the FayWhat Show, the first LGBTQ plus morning show, Mondays at 9 a.m. Eastern, and that's online, or of course, where you should watch it is your smart television. Good evening, Faye.
Good evening, boys. So happy to be with you guys. You know, I feel old today, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm still getting over Miss Florida FI, all right? It was 2 wonderful days, Sunday and Monday. I get it, folks. It's Wednesday, right? But I'm old, so I'm still getting over that. I'm tired. It was a wonderful pageant. Congratulations to all those involved.
And then I woke up next to you the next morning.
Ooh.
Or no, the day before when you were getting ready on Monday.
Probably start drinking again. I love you, John Hayden.
You probably should explain. There's a lot of people going, wait, what?
Oh, Mr. John Hayden joined me in bed on the FayWhat show
okay,
Monday
let's
morning.
just stop right there.
It was wonderful.
It was
Thank
great.
you,
We had a
John.
great time.
You
So-
look wonderful in pasties.
I do.
What
I
were
really
you
did.
wearing? We were
Flamingos.
Wait, this is
Pink
Halloween
flamingos.
month. It is Halloween.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely are enjoying
Al
our Halloween
keeps
month for
qualifying.
sure, and LGBTQ plus History Month as well. All right, let's welcome anchor John Hayden, my brother from another mother. A journalist for 27 years, he now works for several outlets, including SFGN, South Florida Gay News, as a reporter and community editor, covering politics, entertainment, and local events directly impacting the LGBTQ plus community. John's interviewed everyone from presidents to Oscar winners and been on more red carpets than he can count. He also dedicates his life to making sure the L and the G are never brought together. That's so mean.
I never get tired of the FayWhat. I never get tired of John Hayden.
I'm a little tired of John Hayden.
I'll never be tired of you. Love you, baby. Mwah. All right, let's welcome anchor.
Not really.
Let's welcome anchor Kishi Chad. He serves as a board member at Unity Coalition, the first and only organization for the South Florida Latinx, Hispanic, and Indigenous LGBTQ plus community, advancing equality. Welcome, Kishi.
Good evening, everyone watching. Good evening to this panel. I'm in great company. I like all of you. So, Unity Coalition, Celebrate Orgullo. We are about halfway through the event, festival, the festivities, the itinerary. We have Los Invisibles de Colombia at Pride Lines tomorrow. We have the Tropic Gala at the Czech Club in North Miami on Saturday. CelebrateOrgullo.com. We're waiting for you. So let's
Wait,
welcome.
before you do that, let's talk about this a moment. I know you're going.
Oh my
I'm
God.
very excited because my passport just arrived today.
Oh,
To go
you
down
can get it freshly stamped in North Miami.
across
Yes.
the border to come. I've never been to
Tropicala. It's going to be awesome. And Josie's going to join us. Dale Stein is going to be there. Kadai's going to be there. The whole group of Unity Coalition is going to be there. It's going to be a wonderful time. And so the theme is BC, like Cuba before Castro.
Correct.
So we are all going to be
before
dressed
Castro,
up.
before communism,
Yes.
and before there was a Kishi word. What's the third word? I can't remember. But it's a clever saying.
Thank you. Well, I look forward to seeing you all Saturday. But before Saturday comes, let's welcome Anchor Paul Thomas. He is currently the chairman of the LGBTQ plus advisory committee to the city of Miami Beach, a board member of Miami Beach Pride, on the board of directors for the Point Foundation, and the endorsement committee for SAVE. He has over 30 years of experience in the healthcare and education fields, specializing in AIDS and HIV treatments, as well as an activist and advocate for marginalized communities. Locally, he works with many of our nonprofits and FQHCs, providing a wide range of services. Good evening, superstar Paul Thomas.
And in his spare time, what the heck?
Good evening, Kishi, and good evening, everybody. It is a nice group, right? I like the energy in this group. October 16th, National Coming Out Day. If you don't have anything to do, come by Miami Shores. First ever Pride event in Miami Shores. They were not allowed for years to fly a pride flag.
Yes.
The administration has
Reported
changed.
that at Queer News Tonight.
Yeah, the administration has changed. We are not only going to have a pride flag, but we're going to have a nice little march and a carnival and a festival. October 16th in the afternoon in Miami Shores. It's historic. First time ever
And give it
in
up
that
to the
neighborhood.
city of Miami Shores, because they have come a long way. Now they have
Absolutely.
LGBTQ plus groups there. They have Facebook groups. They have all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
Miami Shores is definitely welcoming LGBTQ plus.
Absolutely. I'm excited. I'm excited for that day and for them. And so now we are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. And this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Wednesday, October 5th, 2022.
Well, before I lead the story, I've got a little bit of breaking news that I want to tell everybody. Very exciting. Sat in a planning meeting at Hotspots and Happening Out today, and two really great things have happened. You may not be aware, I know everybody here at the table is aware, but we have an art gallery. And an art gallery was in the original offices of Hotspots eons ago, and then we went into the larger merge and Happening Out and Hotspots and WMAG, all combining efforts onto Dixie. The original office was in Oakland Park, and that's where the gallery is. And the reason it's important is it's virtually one of the only dedicated LGBT artist-embraced art galleries in the country. Stationary, 365 days a year. Well, we've been talking about it a lot, and Wilton Manors, of course, is our home. And in January, we'll have the new grand opening, and we're moving the art gallery into Wilton Manors, into a bigger space on Dixie Highway, right next to the Hotspots corporate offices on Dixie Highway, across the street from South Florida Gay News and the theater. So moving right into
Great
part
location.
of the neighborhood, yes. And
that's great for that stretch of the street. It needs just a little something extra, and this is good.
Something more, yes, absolutely. And so exciting news. It means that it'll move into a larger exhibition space, and it embraces Wilton Manors in the way it should embrace. The second bit of news announced today is our group that puts on Stonewall Pride, Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television, and the group is going to do a major embracement party for Pride of the Americas in February. So on the Friday night of Pride of Americas weekend, we're going to do a major event in cooperation with the Wilton Shops and Alibi, etc., and turn the entire parking lot into a party called Pride on Drive. And it's going to be the Friday night in February. Main stage is going to be brought in like what is done for Stonewall, and we're going to turn Wilton Drive into a big party.
Woohoo!
Fantastic.
For the weekend, and exciting news. You'll hear lots and lots of details coming, so stay tuned. Great for artists, great for our community. Well, let's begin tonight's Queer News Tonight by queering up education. Court challenge to Florida's Don't Say Gay is thrown out by a judge. We ask, what's next? A federal court in Florida dismissed a challenge to the state's Don't Say Gay law last week, but left open the possibility that the case could be refiled in the future. In a 25-page opinion issued last Thursday, District Judge Alan Windsor, who was appointed to the bench by former President Donald Trump, found the plaintiffs Equality Florida, Family Equality, and a group of teachers, students, and parents had not established standing to file the case. Windsor said, quote, "The principal problem is that most of the plaintiffs' alleged harm is not plausibly tied to the law enforcement so much as to the law's very existence," end quote. He stated that no injunction issued by a court could resolve that issue. The plaintiffs could refile the suit at a later time, but must first meet additional thresholds. The ruling came in response to motions filed by Equality Florida and Family Equality requesting discovery in the case filed in April. The court had prevented discovery or the process of gathering information in the case via deposition and examination of the evidence, saying that the plaintiffs had yet to show that they had standing to file the case. The judge has given the groups 14 days to file a response to his decision. It's an interesting position and more to come. What's next is more to come. So the issue here is basically the judge is summarizing the fact that you haven't shown harm yet. You are just showing objection to the law. Now,
You're speculating.
You're speculating.
And nothing's
harm,
actually happened yet.
And nothing has happened yet.
So that's what standing means. then.
Standing,
Okay.
exactly.
It's any of your business.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And
I mean, none of those things are true as far as things have happened. They just haven't turned into court cases.
yeah, that's
But the existence of the law is enough. Why do we have to wait until another child is harmed? I have been on quality education calls. Parents are a lesbian couple said their 11-year-old son came to them and said, "Can only one of you come to my school games because I'm not getting in the middle of it." This is before school started.
Wow.
These women were in tears. And they're like, how are we having this conversation with our 11-year-old? Because of this law, because of its existence. Right? Harm is happening. I think that judge made up an excuse. They found some legal nonsense to not move the case forward. I think it's disgusting.
Again, remember who appointed that judge, right?
and I think
so
that's
even if
why-
they had standing, would they still be okay with this? No.
But that's what I mean. We don't have to wait beyond the law's existence, right? Everything has had to change. The books that can be in school, what kids can talk about and where, what teachers can have in their classrooms, whether they can, I mean, there's lots of things that have happened. I think we need to look into this, Judge.
Yeah. Well,
It's an
but
issue.
now we're almost 2 months into the new school year.
Right.
So I think, unfortunately, to your point, someone is going to be harmed at this point. There's
So a
going to
kid
be
has to
enough.
die for something to happen. That's what you're telling me.
Yep.
John.
Unfortunately, that could actually happen. Hopefully, it will be a teacher will be suspended for having a picture of her wife on her desk, and then she can file it. They could end up being what they call a test case, where someone intentionally violates the law, and so that they can hopefully say, no, this is unconstitutional. I'm not saying it's the best way to go. I'm just saying that's kind of where we put it now, and we are 2 months in, so possibly this is going to happen.
Let me give you just a little bit of a different perspective. It does not meet Paul's challenge. I can't meet Paul's challenge, but just in terms of discussion as example. When gay marriage was discussed, you could say for a long time, decades, that marriage was a right that should be protected unequivocally. And we don't have to justify why two men or two same-sex partners should be able to marry. It isn't until the denial of the marriage, like Todd Del May's case that Equality brought in the state of Florida. It wasn't until they could show standing of Todd and Jeff Del May not being able to marry that it becomes a case that establishes standing and then moves forward. So in this instance, while I do agree with you, just for the sake of clarity of understanding, this judge is defining a very intricate issue by saying, well, you haven't shown someone harmed yet, and there's no Todd Del May-like representation in your case. And so therefore, without that, you don't have standing. The next of what's next is going to be, okay, now we're going to find the standing. And that's why the judge is saying, well, bring it back, because you are going to be able to bring it back because you're going to show, God forbid, someone die over it, but stickers or photos on desk, etc. Then you'll have standing to hear the case. And it'll move beyond whether this law was right or wrong, and then it moves into who is harmed. And then the courts will relook at it again.
I actually have two thoughts. I am curious, as Faye kind of mentioned earlier, what exactly would they define as harm? Because it may not be physical, but there's still many ways that anyone, especially LGBTQ staff and students, can be harmed. If they feel like they can't be themselves, if they feel like they have to be isolated, or...
Can I give you the most obvious example?
Yeah.
If you are a junior high school student, let's say, and you're being bullied because you're gay, you're a 250-pound eighth grader who is gay and going through a whole kind of gamut of issues, but the pinnacle of the bullying is being gay, and you don't have a safe space in your school, you don't have a counselor or teacher that can help you navigate it, and that student commits suicide, now you have harm. And that will be the argument. Unfortunately, that's Faye's point. Somebody
It'll
has
have to go to that extreme.
First, but that creates the standing.
Hopefully we'll get cases before that. You know, along with the resolution that we passed in Miami Beach last week, the mayor made up these signs that said his sister is an AP history teacher. And so he made up this sign for her to put in her classroom that said, I support LGBTQ History Month. They made this known like around the staff and PTAs, and over 400 teachers requested the sign and have them hanging up in their schools. And people, like, they couldn't make them fast enough that people were like, I'm putting it up. Like, let them do something to me.
Is there a rainbow on the sign?
The letters are rainbow. Like, I am in support. It's all rainbow colors the whole time.
You actually addressed the second point I was questioning, like what would be the next solution and who exactly internally within the education system is supporting it. And to see that kind of solidarity is exactly what we need to see. It needs to come from the teachers.
I was shocked. We thought maybe 5 people. It was
400.
like, in 2 days, it was like over 400 people. They were like, we can't make the sign.
Kudos to those teachers, because I would be afraid I'm losing my job.
And they are, but like they don't want a kid to die.
Yes, exactly. You know? And as much as we applaud that action, let's criticize the school board equally on the other side. It was a horrendous decision of that 7-1 decision to say, no, we can't have an educational focus of LGBTQ History Month. We do it for Black community, we do it for women, we do it for all kinds of things. This was a specific exclusion. Now the issue is, how do you create standing in a court case to say we don't recognize LGBT History Month in October? Is that enough justification in and of itself to be standing? Maybe not. But now a teacher, in this instance, and we applaud the initial teachers, we applaud Miami Beach in the push of it. Miami Beach has stood up against Miami-Dade County schools just magnificently, in my opinion, and let them fire a teacher. Fire a teacher over putting up that sign. Now we have standing, because you're going to go back to the court.
Okay, got a solution.
And it's the Todd Del May in gay marriage. That's what's going to happen next. So this is not good news on the court decision, but it's far, far from over.
Yeah, not over.
Well, we move on and we queer up South Florida gay news, bringing politics to the party. With just a month until the midterms, politics is moving into the heart of Wilton Drive. A new Get Out the Vote Center is a joint effort between the Dolphin Democrats and the Florida LGBTQ+ Democratic Caucus. In this week's SFGN, online now and on stands tomorrow, I look at the only LGBTQ+ Get Out the Vote Center in Florida and its strategic importance. Located at 2348 Wilton Drive, it's right across the street from the Manor, which is a popular club, and lots of LGBTQ businesses and restaurants are in the area. This is an opportunity to put politics front and center to an LGBT community who doesn't often pay much attention. Bud Beeler, one of the organizers, told me, quote, "One primary goal is to educate voters on candidates who are running and are supportive to the important issues of LGBTQ plus voters, including women's rights, trans rights, immigrants, and the economy," end quote. The center already has signs in the windows and hopes to have a grand opening this weekend. With the election so close, there will be no days off. The center will operate every day until Election Day, 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Fridays, 9 to 9 on Saturdays, and noon until 7 on Sundays. The first goal is registering people to vote. The last day to register anywhere in Florida is October 11th. After that, they'll stock a variety of yard signs, window signs, and bumper stickers for local and state candidates. Boosting enthusiasm is key after lackluster turnout in the August primaries. Mail-in ballots are already arriving for those who are registered. Early voting is October 24th through November 6th, and voting day is November 8th. More details and interviews are in my article in South Florida Gay News, online now and on stands tomorrow. And they've been working for several weeks to try and line up a spot specifically on the drive. Because, you know, Al, you and I have talked about this often when we're out and about on the drive, that what we do here, nobody at whatever restaurant or bar we're at probably is even aware of the issues that we're discussing. And they want to make sure this is where people can go. They will be visible. They hadn't gotten their all their insurances in line yesterday. So they put out a card table with some signs out front on the sidewalk. And they said, well, they'll just do that until they get insurance or the city makes them stop. So don't tell anyone.
And this is the first of its kind, correct?
First of its kind in
Yes.
the entire country.
And they're expecting some VIP top tier candidates, former office holders, perhaps. Mm-hmm.
It's fantastic. I'm so excited to hear about this. I can understand that, you know, we often say, all right, everybody's not going to be aware. But those of us that are need to put up a card table in the middle of Wilton Drive, right? And make as many people aware as possible. I'm thrilled about this. Please get registered, though. You cannot vote if you're not registered.
Yeah,
absolutely true. You know, John, I think, says probably the single most important thing related to this, which is potential former politicians. Now, that is code. Everybody knows what John's talking about, and so we won't add more to that.
Oh,
However, to
do
say, well, hopefully. But even if they don't, they will. Because what happens in doing this voting center on Wilton Drive is everybody, it is being financially supported in various different ways, including candidates that have been endorsed by the Dolphin Democrats and the Florida LGBTQ Democratic Caucus. The Democratic Caucus, Stephen Gaskell is the president, has 20 chapters across Florida. What will happen is this will elevate the presence of everyone that's running for office to come through to Wilton Drive. When you come into South Florida, if you're a statewide candidate or if you're a national candidate, you come to Wilton Drive because you're going to come to the LGBTQ voting center. Now that means, as John reports in his story, we can report that it is for sure going to open. There's going to be an opening event, a private opening event on Saturday at 4 o'clock, and the voting center is going to be launched by Congressman Val Demings, running for U.S. Senate. And she's going to be there and speak, and everybody is eventually going to be there, because if you come into South Florida, you're going to go to this LGBT center because they want to embrace the LGBTQ community, whether you're a former candidate, let's hope a big one, comes, or whoever else. They're going to come to Wilton Drive. And every time they come to Wilton Drive and they stand in front of that building on Wilton Drive, they go in and speak. Press covers them. John's going to cover them. Al's going to cover them. And everyone in Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale and Broward County and South Florida are going to know another one and another one and another one. And they bring attention to the election in unique ways that are just, we want to turn the television off. There's so many commercials. This is getting to LGBT voters in a completely different way.
Hey, there's one thing you could put on your sign, just a suggestion. You know, some insurance companies have decided that they're not going to pay for PrEP, right? Have you guys heard that?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone isn't aware of politics and they're not really interested in politics, but they're on prep and they want to continue to get prep, they need to pay attention to who's in office, right? They need to pay attention to our lawsuits. They need to pay attention to when we're being discriminated against. When insurance company says, I'm not going to pay just for your medication for the gay guy. Right? Like, we'd rather you get HIV than to protect you. This is horrible stuff, right? So if you need to get their attention on the drive, put up a sign about that.
And it's
try to insure your home.
But to your point, it's about micro issues now. The people who are absolute Democrats are already going to vote Democrats. The people who are absolute Republicans are going to vote Republican. We're getting down to the nitty gritty, and in Florida, it always comes down to a couple of points. And it's about
what's affecting your life.
The micro pockets of voters, the people who their health care, their HIV meds are important to them. A myriad other issues. And last week, CNN moved the Rubio seat into its top 10 most vulnerable seats to flip. Now, 3 points is a landslide in Florida, but it's not an insurmountable obstacle a month out. So it's really exciting. And we are the microcosm, the micro pocket of voters that could help move that needle just the little bit that it needs.
Exactly right.
My hope, though, is that voter turnout for the midterms, the primaries, the governors is more supported. It's so disappointing every year to see that. Well, every presidential election has so much energy and creates so much buzz and there's so much passion. But what about locally? Like, I think people always want the president to blame, but I feel like you're not even invested in what's happening around you locally, which affects you directly. My hope is that this voter center can. And not just this voter center alone. I think one thing about us here on this stage and about us in general as a community is that we have so many mobilizers and leaders and innovators who can find ways to actively work together and come up with some campaign to actually excite people about voting, because there is not a lot of excitement. People always want to avoid politics, but it's a necessity.
You know, one more thing, because we've got to get to this burning major story. That
Do you see me burning? Do you see my cheeks are red.
I know. One last thought too. Let's not allow this moment to pass in that I know we all do this, but I have lots and lots of friends in California, in Los Angeles, connected with a former show that I worked with. And I always joke, oh, y'all are so yesterday. You're just so yesterday. Because everything that's happening in the LGBTQ community in America is happening in South Florida. This is another example of it.
That's right.
We are reinventing. And that's exactly what the LGBTQ community everywhere needs to do.
Yeah, so take note, folks.
But that's what we're good at.
Start a voting center where you're at,
That's
folks,
exactly
all right?
right.
And with that, we got to get to my story. I'm so excited about this. All right, let me take a breath. It's all about queering up lesbian culture.
Yay!
Yes!
Everybody went.
Woohoo! Come on. Velma's lesbian crush revealed and seen in Scooby-Doo movie, and fans are losing it.
What?
After years of speculation, theories, intended storylines, and conversations, Scooby-Doo has finally made explicit reference to Velma Dinkley being a lesbian. Velma has often been inferred as a gay lesbian character in several different versions of Scooby-Doo over the years, but the latest Scooby-Doo movie has finally given fans a handful of scenes that clearly confirm her sexuality. Fans are absolutely losing it over the clips of Velma from the latest animated movie, where her crush on another female character is a major character arc point. The clip from the new Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo sees Velma come face to face with a character named Coco. In the scene, Velma's glasses steam up because she's blushing because she says Jinkies after she sees Coco. After seeing the moment played out on screen after years of talk from producers and directors of other Scooby-Doo movies about Velma being a lesbian, fans are screaming. One user wrote, quote, Velma being a canon lesbian gay in 3 separate SD universes is so amazing. She's just so powerful that she willed it into existence, end quote. Another user added, quote, holy shit, They actually did it. Like, I knew they were gonna in Mystery Inc. And it's been very heavily hinted at, but just having Velma go full lesbian meltdown over a girl in a classic Scooby thing is wild, end quote. It's Velma, folks. I mean, she's like a second away from Birkenstocks and CrossFit. You know what I mean? Like, she is like the biggest lesbian ever. I mean, but it's time to give her like a makeover. That little bit of bronzer ain't enough, you know? She kind of looks like my wife, which is another reason why I think she's super hot. But anyway, congratulations, Velma. I knew you were a lesbian all along, and you know, I'd probably have sex with an animated figure. Now, come to think about it. Yeah, what do you guys think? Come on, Velma's a lesbian.
Representation matters. It really does.
There's no mystery in the Mystery Mobile anymore.
That's
though.
you know, it's funny when I first heard this news. I thought, you know, it's really interesting because I come from an era, I know other people at the table do also, where we watched Saturday morning cartoons.
Right.
You don't do that anymore. They don't exist anymore. Scooby-Doo was part of that lineup of your Saturday morning childhood watching television. And I remember not understanding sexuality and my sexuality, but just knowing that there's something odd and different about Velma. And it wasn't until I got into my mid-teens that I realized, oh, now I understand what it is. And it's taken all of this time to finally do it. It's like, wait, this is 2022, not 1998.
No, she's been smoking weed with Shaggy for 30 years, trying to forget that she's a big lesbian. Pobrecita.
Yeah, I think it's really awesome that now when the Golden Globes come back, that Velma will be able to go with Marcy from the Peanuts.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
No?
Fantastic.
No, come on.
Peppermint Patty, maybe.
All right.
It's funny you talk about our childhood, though, right? I'm one of those, right, that watched the Saturday morning cartoons.
I wasn't going to out you, Paul, but I knew you were of the age that knew what I was talking about.
Well, yeah, it is what it is. But, you know, it's interesting not knowing, right? I didn't know either. I didn't know what a lesbian was at that age. I didn't know what gay, I didn't know what any of those things were, but you just knew, like, Velma's got this really short hair. She's kind of got this way about her. There's something different about Velma.
It's butch.
Last thought that relates to this. Will the lesbian community celebrate this? I mean, will they really think that this is a big deal? Or
I think so, and I think so because I think that we have celebrated Velma for a very long time, just like we've celebrated Peppermint Patty. Like those are our first lesbians, and we'll always celebrate them as such. It's just a long time coming. I'm glad it finally.
I don't know if I told you, I actually met Velma. One year I did a story at the Dinosaur in Palm. Oh wait, that's a whole nother.
That was Velma Rodriguez.
All right, let's go to Brazil.
And now we queer up trans rights. History as 2 trans women elected to Brazil National Congress. Brazil sent 2 trans politicians to its national parliament during its election on Sunday, a first for the South American country. On October 2nd, Brazilians headed to the polls to vote for their country's president, though this election didn't end with a definitive winner. Rather, the top 2 candidates, Jair Bolsonaro, the current and notably LGBTQ plus president, and leftist challenger Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva have advanced to the next round, which will take place on October 30th. While that contest is still to be decided, voters in several parts of the country did decisively send 2 transgender women to Congress. Erica Hilton, a Black trans woman, won her election after campaigning to fight for education, housing, social housing, and LGBTQ plus rights in the country. Joining Hilton in celebrating an election victory is Councilwoman Duda Salabert, a member of the Democratic Labor Party, who was elected to represent the state of Minas Gerais. As per the newspaper Brasil de Fato, Brazil has the highest number of reported anti-trans killings of any country in the world, a trend that has held stable for many years. According to the Washington Blade, Hilton and Salabert are 2 of the 324 out LGBTQ plus candidates who ran during this election cycle in Brazil.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep.
What do you think? I thought this was a typo. Okay, understand. When I'm thinking about Bolsonaro, and I'm thinking about, like, wait a minute, what? They really elected 2 trans folks?
I've been to Brazil many times. Magnificent country.
Yeah.
I'll put it delicately.
The boys are beautiful.
I was
Say
gonna
that.
say,
The girls are hot too.
You know, I have been known to have this penchant for Brazilian
Boys.
men and Cuban men.
Boys.
And Brazil gives Cuba
A run for its money? Really?
Money. I'm just telling you. Unfortunately, Brazil is the most homophobic country in the Western Hemisphere. And it's not that it's not the Latino culture. It's not Catholicism that has caused it. What has caused it is radical right politicians. Bolsonaro is
a friend of Trump's.
Exactly. It is a very hard political right teaching and white supremacist kind of mentality that's caused it. This is very exciting news. His defeat, if he is defeated, will be international news. If he is defeated, we'll see what happens.
Well, he lost the first round of voting by about 5 points.
That's right.
And
It's a runoff.
It's going to a runoff. So he would need to get like 2/3 of the remaining 9% that went to other candidates to win. Unfortunately, Brazil is way ahead of America in as far as like tilting their elections and having their presidents be able to go in and snatch ballot boxes out of particular places. So hopefully there will be UN or international monitors for this election because Bolsonaro was already turning the screws on the local precincts. So it's going to be interesting to watch. It wouldn't surprise me if there is serious political violence after this comes out.
Not surprising, but what I'm loving is the people stood up, right?
Yeah.
So when you were talking about the right-wing politicians, and oftentimes this is what happens, right? It's not the people that are having a problem. The people are getting along fine.
Exactly right.
It's the political powers that make a country even have a slant of even having this type of an issue. And the people said, you know what? We're not only going to send LGBT, we're going to send 2 trans people.
And these women are getting death threats every day. Paul.
Right,
Okay, they also have to go to the polling places, places with bulletproof vests on. Okay, and they're still doing it.
You know, and they're still doing it. It's amazing.
One final thought about what's going on in Brazil, of this dramatic contrast between the radical right of people like Bolsonaro. Is you contrast that to LGBTQ community. We remind, I have not been to it, but I want to very, very much.
Sao Paulo Pride.
Is Sao Paulo Pride. And Sao Paulo Pride is the largest pride event in the world. This year for Sao Paulo Pride, 2 million people.
No way. And only 3 people had clothes on. Only 3 people had clothes on of all those people.
Wait, let's come back to the Brazilian men observation. We get it. We're watching this very, very closely.
Yummy.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, let's...
Fantastic. And now we are going to queer up the worldview. TikTok is fined by Russia over LGBTQ propaganda. Russia has reportedly fined TikTok for refusing to delete what the government calls LGBTQ propaganda. The fine was issued on October 4th to forbid the promotion of LGBTQ+ content to under 18s. TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, was fined at least 3 million rubles, according to Moscow's Tagansky District Court. I didn't know the ruble was worth that much. Following these sources reported by Reuters, the case was based on accusations that the company was promoting non-traditional values, LGBT, feminism, and distorted representation of traditional sexual values. It also fined streaming service Twitch for hosting a video interview with Ukrainian political figure Oleksiy Arestovich, which Moscow said was fake information. Amazon, which owns Twitch, was fined at least 4 million rubles for violating a law that Russia passed in March that prohibited acts of discrediting the armed forces. While neither company has made an explicit statement following the fines, Reuters reported that a TikTok representative was heard insisting that the court proceedings be terminated. The companies could face significantly more fines by Russia in the future if the so-called LGBTQ+ propaganda videos are not removed or restricted. Russia has been using the LGBTQ+ propaganda law to suppress LGBTQ+ activism and media that would otherwise put the queer community in a positive light.
It's hilarious that this country is so invested in taking down an entire community. So if they want to continue to fine people for being themselves, they're going to have to keep trying hard. It's not going to stop. Like LGBTQ folks, we are so resilient. And no matter what happens, no matter how many laws you put up in a country, you cannot stop people from existing. You cannot take us all out.
Well, I think it's funny that, you know, they find TikTok, right? And they want the videos to not go to the youth, but that's what TikTok is,
Right?
Like young people aren't on Facebook, old people are on Facebook.
We're
Young
on-
people are on
grown people.
young people are on, like they're on.
Exactly, because you're old.
Yeah,
That's what
John,
he's saying.
right.
Well, 3 million rubles, right?
What is that
Rubles,
worth?
rubles
Yeah. What is that worth?
It's $48,919.80.
Is it that much?
Yeah. You thought it was 3 cents.
Yeah, I thought it was.
For
So, but
promoting.
it's important to remember, like TikTok Europe is based out of like Denmark. So good luck collecting the fines. It's not like they can go to their Moscow office and collect it, but it's the point that they're trying to make that we are worth erasing. That they're taking a stand because Putin needs a win. Putin needs a win on some front right now.
why
Because
we're being attacked.
he is bleeding support in that country,
Yeah.
especially among the people in Moscow and St. Petersburg, which are the two primary cities of his base of support. So he needs something, and if he can come out with and do this resolution or make this statement that really has no teeth to it, then this is something that he can put, and they're not talking about the disaster in Ukraine for
It shows desperation, though, right?
He's like throwing everything against the wall to see what's because even like it's not just LGBTQ plus propaganda, which is the reason why they got fined. They also got fined for feminism, for promoting feminism.
Well, he used to say that gay people didn't exist in
Yeah.
Russia. Remember that?
That they had no
he
gays.
said they don't have
No,
any.
we don't have any gays. What are you talking about?
But then at the same time, he also didn't treat anybody with HIV. So they've suffered a lot of loss.
I think
over
it's
that.
interesting just in terms of happenstance. We do a story on Brazil and Bolsonaro, and then we do a story on Putin. They're really the exact same mold.
Right.
The only thing that needs to be added to the trio of the thruple is Donald Trump. And so you're watching a situation in Russia that is deteriorating so badly. Once upon a time, we thought Russia was just this incredible war machine. Ukraine is proving that is not true. That they can't feed the army. They're having to draft to get people. Tens of thousands of people are escaping Russia, of age in their 20s, men of going, there's no way I'm joining the Russian army and what is happening. We're watching crisis thinking on his part. The one thing that I will say that is dangerous about this story, which potentially could be catastrophic, is he is being cycled down and cycled down and cycled down to perhaps what he thought a year ago, much less 5 years ago, of who he was and what Russia was. He is finding out Russia is not that, and that he is not that. And as he's getting blocked and blocked and blocked, we may be facing an enemy, a world enemy, that is so desperate that when you pin the Wolverine into the corner, it has no choice but to just viciously attack, even if it means it's self-sacrifice. This is a nuclear power of an autocratic leader that may make a decision that battlefield nuclear weapons can be used.
Yeah.
Scary.
This is a scary story too.
After Chernobyl, for them to even, every time he mentions nuclear, I'm like, you lived it.
Yeah.
You lived it.
Yeah, and Chernobyl, of course, is in Ukraine. I mean, they're still dealing with the. That's a poor choice of word, but the fallout. from
Literally.
that. The frightening thing is not only that he would drop low-yield nuclear weapons in East Ukraine or anywhere in Ukraine, is that he could launch something to explode in the Netherlands, over the Hague, the International Court of Justice, over NATO, because he's starting, if you notice the rhetoric, he's starting to say more and more, it's not Ukraine we're fighting, now we're fighting NATO. Now the fight is against NATO. So he could literally, it's easily in the realm of thinking, because I'm thinking it, he could drop a bomb on NATO headquarters, which is in Europe. And that's really the nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
Luckily, a bomb wouldn't reach, right? We have a lot of anti-war weaponry. We would know as soon as, before it left the ground, we would know that it was in the air. There'd be 10 different countries shooting it out of the air.
No.
But the fact that he would be desperate enough, that's your point.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very serious point, is that these guys, Bolsonaro, the former 45, Putin, they're running out. There's nowhere left on the earth where they can like harbor their hatred, right?
What happens when you corner a cat?
Yeah,
They mess you up.
all over the world, people are rising up and they're not putting up with
But
it.
what cost
Yep.
to you?
Yeah.
All right.
yeah.
Well, let's continue by queering up entertainment. Let's talk about something some fun. Marvel's gay Spider-Man has flirty interaction with another superhero.
Sounds more like
You
it, Faye.
get lesbian. I get gay Spider-Man.
Yes.
Marvel's first gay Spider-Man arrives in issue number 5 of the comic book publisher's Edge of Spider-Verse miniseries out today. Ahead of the character's official debut, a preview of the issue hit the internet, revealing Webweaver flirting with a fellow superhero. The single page from the series' final issue shows the openly queer hero exchanging flirtatious banter with an alternate universe version of a vigilante hero known as Silk, who Webweaver describes as frustratingly hot. Gotta think about that for a moment.
I'm used to it.
Out comic writer and the co-creator of Webweaver, Steve Fox, tweeted a couple of panels from the same page earlier this week, explaining that the version of Silk in Edge of Spider-Verse number 5 is not, in fact, a gender-flipped version of the character fans know from the main Marvel Comics universe. According to Marvel's official description of Webweaver, the character is a not-so-mild-mannered fashion designer whose spider powers allow him to show us a very different kind of spider slayer. In a recent edition of his newsletter, Fox teased a bit more about the character, stating, quote, Webweaver is not Peter Parker. He is a brand new hero in the classic spider hero archetype. And I promise you don't need a degree in fashion to follow his exploits. I love that. His job at Van Dyne is akin to Peter's at the Bugle. This is very much an action story with some flirting, which is really my favorite kind. You know, I'm not a huge comic book person. We've reported many, many stories. We report every year in June Marvel and DC's embracement of their Pride special series. But I do like this because in it, at the end of the day, there's lots of young people that read this, and your 13-year-old John Hayden, and I can't even imagine that, but you're 13-year-old John Hayden, and you see yourself in this comic book, and that leads to positive and healthy embracement.
Yeah.
Bravo, I think it's wonderful.
You know, I am a comic book that was my thing as a kid. Still is. The only time I really go to the movies is the Marvel movies. When they're out, I'm of
Disney
a certain
thanks you, by the way.
I'm of a certain age, but guess what? I go sit in that theater and I love it. The thing is, as a young kid, a lot of the comics is about imagination, right? And so when you're kind of allowing yourself as a young person to imagine, to have these characters that have depth in different types of sexualities, and really to be able to imagine beyond what's on the page, right? The superpower into like the humanness of the character. And get that, I didn't understand the humanness of the characters until I was older. You know, as a kid, I just saw the powers, and now you're seeing more depth in these characters.
This is a way to elevate it. Like if you're going to redo stuff or if you're going to add stuff to things that we grew up with, you have to elevate it. You have to make it better. I'm sorry, Peter Parker was freaking boring. Him and his grandma were boring, all right? Webweaver, now this is something else. Like I'm not into comic books either, but I would look this up because now this is our community.
Wait, I'm sorry. Production's telling me that Sally Field is on the phone and would like to talk to
Love me.
FayWhat.
They really love me. All right, Sally, I got you, Mom. I'm sorry. I love that Webweaver.
It's a great story.
I like it.
Yeah, great story.
And fierce. Some of those sketches, I was like,
And what was it? Frustratingly, what is it?
frustratingly hot.
Yeah, frustratingly hot.
It is a burden.
I love
Only some of us are allowed to carry.
the phrase was great for me until John indicated it's said about him all the time in his head.
Next, we are so proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studio. studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. with more than 30,000 watching every week.
G'day everyone, I'm Australian cellist James Clark and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
James. And that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, and otherwise, why are you watching? You need to share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including FayWhat, John Hayden, Kishi Chad, and Paul Thomas. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to our LGBTQ plus world, we wish you
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.